Unlike most game loops, exploration is something that, if done a certain way, I think we'll barely notice actually being built. There are quite a few misconceptions about the profession, like what we'll be searching for and when we can start. So I'm going to be explaining what I think exploration gameplay should be in Star Citizen, and why people should reconsider their expectations. This is my October supporter exclusive video. If you'd like to get more of these in-depth videos looking at the history and details of Star Citizen's development, consider becoming a patron or channel member. If you are already watching this exclusively, here's the future of exploration gameplay. And thank you for supporting my Tomato Talk. To define exploration in Star Citizen, I think it's best to lose the idea of it as a profession. But we'll come back to that. The fact is, explorers will be involved in everyday activities much like cargo haulers will be. If the haulers are the backbone of the economy, explorers are the spear tip. From what I've gathered about the information we know so far, Star Citizen is not a game about discovering new planets, jump points, and nebulas. While these things may be possible, they're not necessarily the goal. You'd have a better time finding that in No Man's Sky or Elite Dangerous. There are a lot of questions surrounding exploration in the game. You'll find plenty of comments claiming that the limited amount of space, slow development time, or number of players before the game launches will all ruin the experience of exploration gameplay. But it won't. And I think they're thinking about it wrong. The joy of exploration is not just about finding something new or rare, going a place nobody has been, or making a grand discovery. It's about the puzzle. About discovering and identifying clues that inform your decisions and then being rewarded for making the right decision. And that can be done on any scale, at any skill level, at any time in a player's career, in any location that has already been discovered. And it can be an entire process of seeking, locating, and exploiting a destination. Or you could just be a single part of that process, like delivering the data. But I believe that exploration as it appears to be geared is not worth developing as a profession like salvaging or refueling, but as a core part of the game that the rest of gameplay can sit on top of and meld with, at least for the most part. It needs to use and rely on good travel systems, good vehicles, and destinations worth finding. So throughout the rest of the video, I'm going to explain the potential puzzle that is exploration based on prior info, and show how Star Citizen has already begun work on the segments needed for it to be enjoyable. Everything I'm about to say is partially speculation, but much of it is backed up by planned features and interviews with the developers. Long-range exploration will revolve around the act of probing distant space. In this scenario, the player will be surveying space in the local star system using remote quantum-capable drones that sit in the system, periodically pinging the space for anomalies and signals out in space. In addition to the ship maintenance you'll need to conduct during this period, this part of exploration gameplay would require you to somehow obtain additional information beforehand that narrows down your search to a certain few million kilometers of space in order to start this long-distance probing. While you may have heard a convoy went missing in one sector of Pyro, you'll need to buy or procure that data for yourself. After the probing has been ongoing, once the signal is located, a player will need to study the signal signature and use their own knowledge of the game, or likely an in-game record or guide of signatures, to determine what it is they're even looking at. But this is dangerous, as some explorers may stop at this point and sell incomplete data, when the signature could be mistaken for something completely different. A more dedicated explorer might move on to the next steps or have more experience with understanding these signatures. Whether you sell the data or act on it though, you'll need a capable ship, enough personnel, and likely a lot of time for this form of exploration. It's also easy to see that this level of gameplay will require a crucial amount of UI to be enjoyable, as opposed to the use of your eyes or simply walking around like we'll talk about in a little bit here. Now, once an explorer determines a swath of space where a signature may be, they will likely need to quantum travel to that location and begin mid-level scans. We don't know much about this gameplay yet, but it will likely be in the 50 to about 150,000 kilometer range. At this range, the primary goal would be to determine the local area. Now that Lagrange points act as hubs with space stations only being one possible stop, we could see a similar system being made for the game as a sort of central location for anomalies and other types of resource deposits that one might find. At this mid-level of exploration, you're probably getting a better idea of your target. You can retrieve more useful information, a more precise location, and possibly even some data transmissions coming from the target itself. More specific gameplay here has not been revealed to us, as the new quantum boost mode of travel at these distances was only just revealed at the time of this writing. I'll have much more to say on this when we are further along, but for now we don't know the nuance of this travel method and how it might factor into exploration. I do, however, feel like this new method of travel with short-distance quantum approaches and blind quantum jumping is going to make for a lot more interesting exploration experience. Just know at this stage, you likely need a good shipboard scanner and the right information to act off of if you are going to take part in exploration like this. This stage of gameplay is going to need some robust travel mechanics, and the process of scanning is going to need to be improved a lot for this to be enjoyable. After this, we'd move on to short-range exploration, which is what we are all more familiar with right now. It is the most important part of exploration gameplay, because it will be the most rewarding, and the most common considering these elements will be part of most gameplay in general, from looting to salvaging. Here, a player will need to fly around or land at a destination and uncover clues to the location's history and importance. You'll need to use low-range scanners and ping, possibly interact with local NPCs for information, platform, interact with the environment and power systems, and locate important items and information that could lead to new missions, or sell for a lot of money. Short-range exploration is mainly about acting on information, whereas other segments of the gameplay are about procuring it. Any big discoveries like a location are gone at this point. This is mostly about finding something that is unknown at a location that already is known, and will require many unique items, derelict ships, ruins, locations, resource deposits, and more to consistently and procedurally be created and implemented all across the play space, because this is where exploration for most players will lead on a daily basis. In order for this gameplay to be enjoyable though, it'll need a reliable system that rewards players, robust actor feature mechanics like platforming, scanning, and the multi-tool, and interesting travel mechanics in terms of ship flight and EVA. The explorers themselves will want to make sure they have good information and the right equipment to take on a mission in this sort of short-range scenario. And this last short-range segment is honestly all you really get right now in the game. And unfortunately, even with some new locations being added just about every year, there still are not enough reasons for the casually interested explorers to pursue this gameplay. But what reasons will they even be pursuing? Let's talk about the motivations behind exploration and what you'll actually be looking for in Star Citizen. Because like I said before, it's not really going to be about finding the next star system. Most likely the most common source of reward for your exploration efforts in Star Citizen are going to be the resources. Whether you are searching an old battlefield for valuable derelict ships to pick up, surveying deep space for asteroid clusters with valuable minerals, or looking for a new source of valuable harvestables, you'll likely be looking for something that other people will need. In my opinion, this will be the bulk of exploration, depending on ships like the Odyssey that are not only built to focus on these types of exploration jobs, but can also include things like refineries, mining lasers, and ship munching tools to help with the job. Of course, you may be the person that passes on this information showing where resources could be, but there's little doubt that you'll be able to find an exploration ship that allows you to exploit your findings, or at the very least, bring along another ship that can. Finding resources is what I expect from the bulk of your bill-paying everyday work, your anomaly investigations. That being said, it doesn't necessarily sound as exciting as some are expecting, because their end goal is something different. The first ever jump point in Star Citizen was found by accident, and as far as we know, there are still plenty that remain undiscovered or simply moving around. While the Carrack is a good ship for mapping existing jump points to update the details of ship routes to other systems, it may also be able to find some one day. This isn't something that's been confirmed in the new age of Star Citizen, but I could see it being a possibility. In the lore for the game, we can see that jump points were discovered by accident, some have disappeared, and others have shifted in location over time. Of course, there's also the possibility of rogue moons, hidden planets, or anomalies like comets that can be found. The idea of comets are particularly interesting, as the company could basically make a planetary surface that is only available to be visited for a certain amount of time. Could determine when you decide to visit this area, with hardcore explorers making the trip when the comet is well outside the orbits of planets, and more casual players jumping on by when it's really close to the planets and easy to get to. On that note, long-timed events that can spawn for a few weeks to months every year or two, or maybe even every few months, would drive a lot of exploration excitement around locations that aren't normally available or interesting. Things like the periodic solar flares coming from Pyro Star could really improve the gameplay experience by changing the environment and making some old places seem new. And then there's touring, the most peaceful form of exploration and the most common form currently. Simply grasping at far off, often unseen places for the views is one of the best parts of Star Citizen. It isn't tangibly rewarding just yet, but it can be an amazing experience just considering the views. And while it doesn't pay anything now, passenger transport is not far away. And I do believe we will see passenger missions that call for pleasure rather than just transportation. I think we'll have missions to take people to see certain things. I've already joined a couple expeditions just like this. The Curvature group took me out to see a naturally occurring solar eclipse out near Hurston. It was an amazing opportunity, one that took them dozens of hours to orchestrate and put together, and something they plan to continue doing as the game keeps developing. They actually put together a system for players to RSVP to be taken on tours of this location, already showing the possibilities of touring-focused organizations and groups making some money in-game. For those dedicated, there will be a ton of interesting sights and phenomena to see, and this could end up being a very large part of exploration gameplay. As I said in the beginning of this video, this gameplay is based on a few key things: good travel systems, interesting vehicles to use, and worthwhile destinations. Looking at these points, we can see how these elements have been slowly coming together. The vehicles are obvious. We can see the potential for flight-based exploration in the various types of exploration ships that have come out, but also the fact that they have interiors, full rooms, and systems dedicated to cartography and finding new information in addition to ground vehicles for more intensive searching. The vehicles are there. The supporting features just need to be finished. As for travel systems, quantum travel is pretty basic, restrictive, and long distance. I've been worried about the more free-form factor of exploration that we lost when blind quantum jumps were removed several years back, but we recently learned about Quantum Boost, improving the mid-distance travel mechanics with more freedom and intrigue, as well as bringing back blind jumps. The new EVA improvements we've seen recently also show some focus on being able to move around and explore small space-based and zero-G environments as well. These new focus on travel and movement methods bode well for the future of exploration, though we don't know when these two major changes will actually be a thing. And finally, the destinations. Star Citizen has no problem with beautiful planets, but it has struggled with points of interest in smaller locations that may be interesting to find and explore. There are several places around the game now that you really have to try to find, but there still isn't a great way to acquire information to start that hunt besides asking somebody out of game. And there also isn't a good way to narrow down that search, as scanning and storing data is basically useless. But when it comes to new locations, we've seen CIG grow exponentially better at focusing on them. With those new ruins going from concept art in February of 2022 to in-game in just a few months, and more small points of interest being developed groundside much quicker recently than in previous years. We also know that space-based POIs are a huge focus and seeing a lot of work for Pyro. So again, the work is being done on locations. We just need to be sure that the systems to scan and pull information from these locations, the props, resources, and interesting items are actually placed there. All in all, there's a lot that needs to be done to complete exploration gameplay, but the best version of exploration is one that exists in the game's systems, not necessarily as a standalone feature. We are still years away from a worthwhile and fully featured exploration gameplay segment, but make no mistake, it won't be added in an update. Exploration is being built out over the years in a very low-key manner, and there's nothing that says you can't start enjoying it whenever you're ready. There are a lot more opinions and details to take into account considering exploration, but from my perspective, this video offers a decent introduction to what gameplay will entail. I of course only know as much as has been said, and anything can change or deviate entirely from what I've said. If you'd like to keep up with how exploration does change, as it is a focus of mine, make sure to subscribe to the channel and check out my other exploration videos linked down below. And if you would like more high-detailed, in-depth videos about the development of Star Citizen, consider supporting me on Patreon or YouTube to get one of these exclusive videos every month. If you are a supporter, viewing this while it's still exclusive, well, thank you so much for your support, and I'll see you in the next one.